Hello, everyone. Madeline Dell here, and today I have another amazing guest for you guys to check out. This amazing author has a couple books out. Her name's Wren Handman, and I'm going to let her do a brief introductory before we get into some fun questions. So, Wren, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I write mostly young adults and spec fic. So I write a whole bunch of paranormal. I write some science fiction, anything that kind of plays with the magic in the world around us. That's where I live.
Fun. And you've got some books with some amazing covers. So
Yes.
let's see. We've got Wire Wings and Restless Dreams and I Walk Alone, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So Wire Wings is a standalone sci-fi, and then the other two are a duology set in the same world, all about fairies.
So they're kind of interconnected in a way, or are they?
The three of them aren't. So the Wire Wings is totally its own thing. And then the other two are, one is a sequel for the next. So the story very much continues from In Restless Dreams into I Walk Alone.
Sweet. So with the world building on these novels, where did you get the ideas for that?
Oh, good question. I love world building. So for In Restless Dreams, I had this idea of like, if fairies were real, how do we get all of these totally different versions of them all around the world, all throughout history? The stories change. So if the thing is real, why do the stories change so much? So I came up with this idea of these humans called phantasmers. And as these humans dream and believe, the fairy world changes and sort of warps to what they believe it is. So the main character is kind of dealing with this huge responsibility of this power, that what she believes in her heart sort of becomes real in the world around her. I had so much fun playing with that idea and kind of bringing in all the different legends and a whole bunch of research into all these different ideas of what fairy looked like over the years, and got to play with sort of how their world changed around them as humans influenced it.
That is crazy awesome. Like that just sounds fascinating as it is. Like, where did you come up for the name you gave them? That it was for the humans.
The Phantasmer.
That is
I wanted something that was a little bit different that I hadn't seen a bunch of times before. And I love that idea. So there's this old word for phantasms, which was like sort of imagined things that were maybe real or maybe not. So like not quite ghosts, but like mystical things that you saw. So I sort of love that idea of like what's real and what's not.
Love that. That is super unique. And that's
Thanks.
definitely something that'll set your books apart.
Yeah.
With your writing, do you have like a routine or a schedule that you stick to, or do you write when the inspiration hits?
Yeah, I'm terrible with schedule. I know everyone is like, you should set a time and you should make sure you're always working at that time. I'm absolutely just the worst. I'm a full-time writer, and most of what I do isn't the fun stuff. I do a lot of ad copy and a lot of nonfiction books for other people at Ghostwrite. So sort of carving out time for my creative projects can be challenging. For a while, I was doing every Friday. I was just setting that aside. These days, it's more when I feel inspired, when something really grabs me, I'll run down and spend a couple hours writing, just kind of find those moments within the rest of my day.
Oh, I totally get that, because marketing, I feel like, takes up most of my time. I'm sitting here like, because I've been sick and I'm trying to play catch up. I'm just like, oh my gosh, am I even going to get to sit down and write anytime soon? It's just
Right.
insane. And I'm just like, I want to finish writing this story. And it just, nope, marketing happens.
Yeah, the work versus the creative part. And like, you have to do the work so that you can keep writing, but the writing is what you really want to do.
Yes, you got to work it, then you get to have fun. Wow.
Yep.
That is crazy. So with saying that, with the having fun stuff and the load that comes with having to market and work really hard to get your stuff out there, do you have a like method for self-care or anything that you do that helps you keep your mental head on your shoulders kind of thing?
I think my big self-care is reading. I love being able to just set the world aside and immerse myself in stories that I don't have to think about, and I don't have to plan, and I don't have to write. So just being able to sort of dive in, and I find a lot of inspiration too of what other people are doing, and the stories that are out there right now. And you'll get little pieces of things and go, oh, that's cool, but what if you did this with it instead? And that can kind of inspire new ideas for yourself too.
That is fun. Do you read the same genre that you write in?
Yes, I read. I mean, I know some people are like, oh yeah, I read like 500 books a year. I'm like, how do you do that? So I used to think that I read a lot. I read about 50 books a year. And yeah, almost exclusively in YA and fantasy and sci-fi, spec fic, magical realism, all that good stuff.
Nice. The most I think I've read in a year, this was before my child was born and like before I started writing more,
Mhm.
was 200. And I felt like I really killed myself that year to like read all those books.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now I'm like, I do good to make like, I think last year it was like 70 maybe. So I
Yeah.
was just like, I don't have the time anymore. It's
Life has a
insane.
way of taking over.
Yes, it does. It gets busy and more intense. And then you have to struggle with picking which books you're going to read. Like,
Right? Yeah, I have a lot of friends that love rereading and they have series they reread every year. And I'm like, but every time I reread a book, that's a new book that I'll never get to read because there are more books
yes,
in the world that I will ever be able to consume.
yes. Oh my gosh. I'm the same way. I think I've only reread a couple of books in my entire life. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
me too.
oh, gotta read this new book that's been sitting on the shelf, or like I have a ton on my Kindle and I'm just like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get there someday. Yeah. Oh, do you prefer paperback or Kindles when you read?
I'm
Or
a
ebook?
hardcore
Sorry.
paperback lover. I know, like I appreciate that Kindles exist. I think they're a fantastic thing, and I have no judgment at all. I think they're great. But for me, I spend a lot of time on screens. I write for a living. I'm on my computer all the time. I'm on my phone constantly. So I really need that break from the screens and just that like physical thing in front of me. It feels just like stepping away from that sort of technological world, and I really like that.
Yes, I am the same. I've noticed I found myself drifting more to like physical books than I have been, especially
Yeah.
now, like with the way things are in the world with the pandemic and stuff. You're forced to be on your a screen majority
Yeah,
of the time, and it's just
exactly.
exhausting. So
Yeah, meetings are virtual, right? Like even like with friends, we'll watch movies virtually now instead of getting together. Like I'm just like, I need to stop looking at my computer, please.
yes, oh my gosh, it creates like a weird fatigue, and you're just like, just turn it off, close your eyes, turn it
Yeah.
off. Like, oh, my husband can still do it. I'm just like, how?
Yeah.
Like
I
when
don't
my son
understand
goes to
it.
sleep, I'm just like, don't turn anything on. Just leave it off.
Right.
Quiet. Give me a real book. We'll be happy. Oh. So with these books, do you have any more books planned on top of these that you're planning to write?
So the Phantasmaduology is done. There's a novella set in the same world. There's a prequel that's like in the back of my brain that may or may not ever get written. I don't know. We'll see. And then Wire Wings is definitely a standalone. It's story. If you read it, you'll see it. It very much concludes. I don't think there's anywhere to go from there. I'm a big fan of writing standalones and like shorter. Like I love duologies. I find often with trilogies, the middle book, you're like, that could have been, half as long and I would have been okay with it. So I love being able to tell those sort of slightly more compact stories. And like I just started Wheel of Time and it's like 14 900-page books. Like
Yeah,
that's a commitment. Like
it
I kind of like the idea
is.
of just being able to, dip in, get this fantastic world and this story, and be able to sort of let that sort of sit and be its own thing.
I just got book one of that series. I've never read it before because I think like the first one or two episodes that came out on it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this looks like something I might read. And I'm just like, I've heard everybody talking about it. I was like, I don't know if I want to read this series now. If it's that long, like, I don't know if I have
So
enough
long.
time.
It's good
like,
though. I liked it, but
is it?
it's a
Yeah.
big commitment. Yeah. It's gonna be the next like 2 years probably.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't know if I can squeeze that in because I'm still trying to finish like the Witcher series too, which I meant to have finished last year, but it kind of the holidays happened and everything went
Yeah,
nuts.
all
So
plans.
yeah. So I think I've got like 3 books left in that, but I've totally started. Started binge watching season 2 of it
Yes,
night
so
before
good.
last. Oh my gosh, yes. I'm just like,
Loved it.
why
I
did
think I
I do
watched the whole
this?
thing in a week.
I'm trying not to, but I think I'm like 7 episodes in and I can't remember how many are left. And I'm just like, I'm going to hate myself this week if I just sit here and watch this.
Yeah, I thought there were 10 episodes, and then we watched the 8th one, and I was like, wait, is it over?
No. I'm going to stop.
Heartbroken.
Because then I'll finish it tonight. Oh. And I mean, I've read past what like where everything's at. I've read past that in the series, but I'm just like, oh gosh, I can't wait if it's because it's different in the books. Like it's actually tying it all together better instead of like having to like slowly piece the pieces together.
Yeah, it's
Sorry, I
always
totally got off
fascinating.
topic.
No, I find that really fascinating. I'm obsessed with adaptations right now because there's been quite a few
Yes.
really, really good TV
Oh,
book
yes.
adaptations. And I'm just absolutely fascinated with how the stories shift and change in the different mediums and what a book can do that a TV show can't, and vice versa. That there are things
Yeah.
a TV show is really good at that a book doesn't quite accomplish in the same way.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely love sort of looking at stories in that way and seeing sort of what suits them and what doesn't, and the different ways we can tell the same stories. It's really fascinating.
And see, that's a different way to look at it. And I forgot you wrote in your bio that you're a screenplay writer too. So
I am.
like
Yeah.
looking at it from that perspective, that's pretty neat. Have you read the Deborah Harkness's
The Discovery Witches?
yes, I was like, oh my gosh,
I
I'm totally
haven't
blanking.
actually.
She
It sounds up my
actually-
alley, but I haven't gotten around to it.
It's good. The books are really good. And what I've seen of the series they've produced so far, it sticks pretty close to the books. I was actually
nice.
really
Yeah.
impressed because I normally I try not to compare it to the books because half the
Yeah.
time you're just going to be disappointed, but it actually follows it really well. And I don't know how the heck they manage that, but
Yeah.
if you get time, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah,
So,
I will check it out.
I mean, the books are not short at all, but
yeah, another
they're-
big commitment.
yeah, it's I think there's only three. I think they're about 800 pages a piece, maybe. I don't remember. They're on my bookshelf.
At least there's only 3 of them. That's amazing.
Yes, I read them out spread out over the years because I did the mistake of I picked up book 1 without knowing the series wasn't complete.
But it wasn't
and
finished
then
yet.
yeah, and I got the second book, and then I was like, oh, okay, I'll just wait for the third book. I'm sure she's working on it, and it took her 5 or 6 years, I think, to finish it. Because I finished it in college and I totally just put it down and forgot about it. And then something came up in my newsfeed. I was like, oh my gosh, the book's finally done. Which kudos to her. She stepped up and really was like, don't push my creativity. It's going to come, it'll be done when it's done. And I was like,
exactly.
I like that. I get that.
Yeah.
And a lot of authors, as an author, we struggle with that, our readers are like, no, give me more. We're like, we had to take care of ourselves first.
Exactly.
So I'm one of those, I'm like, okay, give me a minute and I will go back to writing. Or my child's like, nope, you're not writing today, mommy, you're going to play with me. And I'm like, okay.
There go those puppets.
Yeah. So, yeah. So with your covers, sorry, going back, I know I'm jumping around a lot. Where did you get the idea for the covers? Especially for the duology. I really like those.
Aren't they gorgeous? In Wrens Dreams has had 3 covers now.
Nice.
So the first one actually originally self-published in Wrens Dreams, and I did the cover myself. It was very mediocre. It was a very nice picture, but I'm not a cover designer.
Yeah.
And then I got picked up by Parliament House Press. So they're an indie press in the States, and they're absolutely phenomenal. And they do the covers. The woman who runs the shop, her name is Shane, and she does all of the covers for most of the books that they put out. So she redesigned it, and it was gorgeous and it was beautiful. But when we put it out, we realized that the book is a contemporary paranormal. So there's actually quite a lot of content that takes place in New York in not a boarding school, but a prep school. Ooh. So the main character has moved from a small town to New York, and she's struggling to sort of deal with that. And she's dealing with bullies, and she's dealing with weird friendships, and she's dealing with rich kids that she's never been around before. And then into all this mess, suddenly she has to deal with fairies too. Cool. So it's this really fun sort of dichotomy between struggling with the real world and struggling with the magical world and how they intersect. And we realized that the cover made it seem like a straight fantasy. So people read it and were like, oh, I didn't expect so much of it to be contemporary. I didn't expect so much to take place in the real world. So when the sequel came out, we decided to redesign the cover to make it a little bit more clear what the books are about, and that you are getting this kind of dual reality. So Shane was really inspired by that to show, New York is a big character in the books. So she wanted to put the city on there, and then this very mystical moon kind of rising above it, and that beautiful color palette. She just did a phenomenal job with them. I'm in love with these covers. She was trying to kind of show the themes of the book through the cover, which was a really fascinating experience. Because that first cover, it was beautiful, but it just didn't give readers the clues they needed about what the book was about.
Yeah.
It was really interesting.
I really like it. And I like that there's the city, like the skyline of the city and stuff at the bottom too. And it's glittery. I love the glitter. So
Yes, it's beautiful.
that really, like, I don't know why it calls to me, and I'm like, okay, I want this book, like, just because the cover's awesome. So
Thank you. And it does, like, the book
good.
is fun. It has that like glittery, bubbly. The main character is
Yay.
very like clever and very funny. So yeah, I think it kind of brings that, shows you that that's what you're in.
That's good. I like that it hints at that. And it sounds like an exciting novel too, on top of that.
Thank you.
Just like it's got the first, like, here's the eye-catching cover novel and
Mhm.
cover, and then here's the great like synopsis, like pull you
Oh,
in.
thank you.
I love that. And this is completed. So, and then you've got a prequel. I'm trying to get my train of thought back. So,
Yeah,
like,
no worries.
with writing, what
Mhm.
do you find to be your hardest struggle with writing?
That's a good question. I think for me, beginnings are always the hardest. So I'm a big plotter, not a pantser. So I like to write an outline and make sure I know sort of roughly where it's going. I usually have sort of 10 or so scenes that I've indicated and like figured out. And then the connective tissue kind of grows naturally and organically as I write. But once I have that outline, I'm like, okay, the book is ready. All I have to do is write it now. Whew, okay. Like that's the hardest thing, is to sort of get started and figure out what the tone is going to be and what the characters' voices are going to sound like. I write a lot of first person. That's sort of, you know, the norm in YA right now. So really getting into that character's head from like the first line, you need to know exactly who this character is. And I think that's the biggest challenge. Once you're into it and once it starts flowing, then it's just magic. Then you just, you know, get to go and play and explore this character.
That is awesome. I think I've read more first person than I have third person. Do you find it weird writing in one versus the other?
It's funny because I wrote, so Wire Wings is in third person, and I loved that book. The writing experience was just so beautiful and there's so much emotion in it. I was like, oh, it's because I switched to third and like, this is the way to write books. And I started working on my next one and I was doing it in third. And it just wasn't connecting and I couldn't figure out why. And I was really stuck. And all of a sudden I went, this is her story. You're in her heart. This needs to be first person. And I rewrote the first, I think I'd gotten like 10 pages done. I rewrote it all. I was like, oh, it's working. Suddenly this book has come alive. So I really think it depends on the character and sort of the story that they need to tell and like how close you want to be to them. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on 2 right now. And I actually did the opposite with the other one where I switched it from first person to third person. I was like, oh yeah, that's much better. That's much better.
Nice. I have never looked at it like that because I think everything I've written's really been in first person, but it's also, like you said, it's the character and it's coming from the character versus like a whole group of them kind of thing. So
definitely, yeah. And I think if you have multiple points of view, I prefer third person because it's a little bit easier for the reader to like jump back and forth between them. Whereas if it's like one person's story, I really like that first person because you can kind of play with how they're seeing the world, and that really tinges the whole book.
Yeah. So if you could give advice to a new author, what would you share with them?
I would say just keep going. Don't get too caught up in what you've already written and like get discouraged if it's not perfect. Just keep going, let the story flow, have fun with it. Writing should be fun. You should be enjoying yourself. So try to find that sense of like pleasure and passion in what you're doing. And like editing will come later. Don't stress about that. That's another stage. Just let the story flow. And then once you have it, you wrote a book. That's incredible. Or you wrote a short story. It doesn't have to start with a book. If a book is too much, you can start small. You can write short stories. You can write novellas, right? Like anything you want to do. You just have to let yourself play with it.
That's good advice. I really like it. So short stories, sometimes that is the place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in writing school, it was all short stories because obviously, like, how are you going to write an entire novel in a semester? So we played a lot with like the shorter genre, and I was always like, I don't like reading short stories very much because if it's good, I'm sad that it's over too soon.
Yeah.
And then if it's not good, you're like, oh, well, I didn't get into that because it was too short and didn't draw me in enough, right?
Yes. And I don't know. I find it weird, like sometimes, like not like so much anthologies, because normally anthologies have a little bit longer stories, but like books of like little bitty, like almost like flash fiction. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, well, it's not for me. Some people love it. That's great.
Yeah.
I,
And
I want to
that's,
dive into a real story.
yes, sink my teeth into a thick book. Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and tell our viewers where they can find you.
I am really active on Twitter and Facebook, and seem to be the only Wren Handman in the world. So if you Google me, it's probably about me. Uh, so you can join me on social media. I'm not very good on Instagram, but I do post a lot of pictures of my cats. So if you like cats, I'm on Instagram as Sings the Wren.
Sweet. And where can we find your books?
They so all the ones from Parliament House are available widely anywhere you can find books. We don't have bookstore distribution yet, but they're on every website. So if you want, Amazon, if you want Barnes and Noble, you can pick them up there. And then you can also head to my website for some of my self-published stuff, and it's available on Smashwords. So all of the ebook formats.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. I had a great time.